Hello guys and welcome to this video. If you have always wondered what really happened to Jonah, did he actually get swallowed by a great fish? I am probably here to answer that question by reading the story directly from the Bible. And if you've never found the time to actually know exactly what happened to Jonah, I am glad you clicked on this video. So before I get started with the book of Jonah, I just want to mention something that David wrote in the book of Psalm 119, verse 46 to 47. He says, I will also speak of your testimonies before kings, and shall not be put to shame. For I find my delight in your commandments, which I love. I just love this verse so much. I just appreciate how David says that he's going to speak of the Lord's testimonies before kings and will not be put to shame. Let us get to the book of Jonah. Like I said before, my Bible has an introduction, so I'm going to read it and hopefully get to know what was really happening during those times and more about Jonah. So my Bible says this. Introduction. Because it tells of a fish swallowing a man, many have dismissed the book of Jonah as fiction. But 2 Kings 14:25 mentions Jonah as living during the time of Jeroboam II. That is about 793 to 753 BC. And this is what 2 Kings 14 says. He restored the border of Israel from Lebo-Hamath as far as the sea of the Arabah, according to the word of the Lord, the God of Israel, which he spoke by his servant Jonah, the son of Amittai the prophet, who was from Gath-Hepher. Jonah was there during the times of Jeroboam II. And my introduction continues by saying, and Jesus referred to Jonah as a historical person in Matthew chapter 12, verse 39 to 41. And this is what Matthew chapter 12, verse 39 to 41 says. But he answered them, an evil and adulterous generation seeks for a sign, but no sign will be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For just as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. So Jesus mentioned the prophet Jonah, which is so cool that Jesus Christ actually mentioned the prophet Jonah. So let us continue. Unlike other prophetic books, Jonah focuses on the prophet himself rather than on his message. When God sent Jonah to Nineveh, he rebelled, was swallowed by a fish, repented, and fulfilled his mission after all. When Nineveh repented, the reason for Jonah's rebellion became clear. He had feared that God would forgive the Ninevites. And when God did forgive them, Jonah resented it. That is found in chapter 4, verse 1 to 3 of the book of Jonah. The book lists no author, but only Jonah himself could have known all the facts it records. Jonah chapter 1. My subtitle reads, Jonah flees the presence of the Lord. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and call out against it, for their evil has come up before me. But Jonah rose to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare and went on board to go with them to Tarshish, away from the presence of the Lord. But the Lord hurled a great wind upon the sea, and there was a mighty tempest on the sea, so that the ship threatened to break up. Then the mariners were afraid, and each cried out to his God, and they hurled the cargo that was in the ship into the sea to lighten it for them. So they threw some of their cargoes into the sea to lighten the ship for them. But Jonah had gone down into the inner part of the ship and had laid down and was fast asleep. So the captain came and said to him, What do you mean, you sleeper? Arise, call out to your God. Perhaps the God will give a thought to us, that we may not perish. And they said to one another, Come, let us cast lots, that we may know on whose account this evil has come upon us. So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. Then they said to him, Tell us on whose account this evil has come upon us. What is your occupation? And where do you come from? What is your country? And of what people are you? And he said to them, I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. Then the men were exceedingly afraid and said to him, What is this that you have done? For the men knew that he was fleeing from the presence of the Lord, because he had told them. Then they said to him, "What shall we do to you, that the sea may quiet down for us?" For the sea grew more and more tempestuous. He said to them, "Pick me up and hurl me into the sea. Then the sea will quiet down for you, for I know it is because of me that the great tempest has come upon you." Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to get back to dry land, but they could not, for the sea grew more and more tempestuous against them. Therefore they called out to the Lord, "O Lord, let us not perish for this man's life, and lay not on us innocent blood. For you, O Lord, have done as it pleased you." So they picked up Jonah and hurled him into the sea. And the sea ceased from its raging. Wow. Then the men feared the Lord exceedingly, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows. A great fish swallows Jonah. And the Lord appointed a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Jonah's Prayer. Then Jonah prayed to the Lord his God from the belly of the fish, saying, "I called out to the Lord out of my distress, and he answered me. Out of the belly of Sheol I called, and you heard my voice. For you cast me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the flood surrounded me. All your waves and your billows passed over me. Then I said, I am driven away from your sight. Yet I shall again look upon your holy temple. The waters closed in over me to take my life. The deep surrounded me. Weeds were wrapped about my head at the roots of the mountains. I went down to the land whose bars closed upon me forever. Yet you brought up my life from the pit, O Lord my God. When my life was fainting away, I remembered my Lord, and my prayer came to you, into your holy temple. Those who pay regard to vain idols forsake their hope of steadfast love. But I, with a voice of thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed I will pay. Salvation belongs to the Lord. And the Lord spoke to the fish, and it vomited Jonah out upon the dry land. Woohoo! So Jonah prayed in the belly of the fish. I cannot even imagine how that was happening. Yeah, okay. Chapter 3 of Jonah. My subtitle reads, Jonah goes to Nineveh. Then the word of the Lord came to Jonah the second time, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and call out against it the message that I tell you. So Jonah arose and went to Nineveh, according to the word of the Lord. Now Nineveh was an exceedingly great city, 3 days' journey in breadth. Jonah began to go into the city, going a day's journey, and he called out, Yet 40 days, and Nineveh shall be overthrown. And the people of Nineveh believed God. They called for a fast and put on sackcloth, from the greatest of them to the least of them. Another subtitle reads, The people of Nineveh repent. The word reached the king of Nineveh, and he arose from his throne, removed his robe, covered himself with sackcloth, and sat in ashes. And he issued a proclamation and published through Nineveh, by the decree of the king and his nobles, let neither man nor beast, herd nor flock, taste anything. Let them not feed or drink water, but let man and beast be covered with sackcloth, and let them call out mightily to God, that everyone turn from his evil way and from the violence that is in his hands. Who knows? God may turn and relent and turn from his fierce anger so that we may not perish. Continues by saying, when God saw what they did, how they turned from their evil way, God relented of a disaster that he had said he would do to them, and he did not do it. Jonah's anger and the Lord's compassion. Chapter 4. But it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was angry, and he prayed to the Lord and said, O Lord, is not this what I said when I was yet in my country? That is why I made haste to flee to Tarshish. For I knew that you are a gracious God and merciful, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, and relenting from disaster. Therefore now, O Lord, please take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live. And the Lord said, "Do you do well to be angry?" Jonah went out of the city and sat to the east of the city and made a booth for himself there. I was like, ugh, I'm just going to make a booth for myself. I hate this. So Jonah went out of the city and sat to the east of the city and made a booth for himself there. He sat under it in the shade till okay. He sat under it in the shade till he should see what would become of the city. So he sat there waiting to see destruction. Verse 6 of chapter 4 says, "Now the Lord God appointed a plant and made it come up over Jonah, that it might be a shade over his head, to save him from his discomfort." He was uncomfortable, but he still just sat there. So Jonah was exceedingly glad because of the plant. But when dawn came up the next day, God appointed a worm that attacked the plant so that it withered. When the sun rose, God appointed a scorching east wind, and the sun beat down on the head of Jonah so that he was faint. And he asked that he might die and said, "It is better for me to die than to live." Wow. Jonah has such a character that I think some of us have, as in when you were children, I think you had the same character. Unafura, then unaenda mahali, you're like, I'm not eating until my parent does something. So I think that was the character of Jonah, even at his age, when he was just an adult. That is just his character. And I think that God is so good to handle such a character like this, which I think that comforts a lot of people who actually have the same character as Jonah, knowing that God has that time to actually come to you and be like, are you seriously angry in this moment? I just love how God and Jonah are behaving right now. Jonah is like, oh, and God is like, Jonah, come on. Oh man, I love it. Yeah, so Jonah said, "It is better for me to die than to live." Verse 9 says, "But God said to Jonah, 'Do you do well to be angry for the plant?' And he said, 'Yes, I do well to be angry, angry enough to die.' And the Lord said, 'You pity the plant for which you did not labor, nor did you make it grow, which came into being in a night and perished in a night. And should I not pity Nineveh, that great city in which there are more than 120,000 persons who do not know their right hand from their left, and also much cattle?'" And that is the end of the book of Jonah. I know it kind of leaves us in this cliffhanger where we're like, what did Jonah say after that? But that is actually the end of the book of Jonah. I appreciate the character of God and the character of Jonah in this situation. And I love that this book is about the prophet himself. I mean, it just gives us a glimpse of how some of the prophets were behaving when God was speaking his word to them. And they're like, I will not go. I'm too important. If you've spoken this to me, that means that I am important. I won't go. I just won't do it. And God kind of gives us that, how he actually related to the prophet, some of the prophets like Jonah. So I really appreciate this. It just helps us see the grace of God even before Jesus Christ came. Like God had grace still, even before Christ came. And when Christ came now, grace was just in abundance. Like we kind of got now to see, we kind of got to see just how graceful our God is. And even Jonah says, "For you are a gracious God," which I really appreciate. I hope this book spoke volumes to you because it really has spoken to me. Thank you guys for watching this video. I appreciate your support so very much. Thank you for always clicking my videos, and I hope to see you guys in my next video. Otherwise, shalom. Shalom.